As promised, I am putting speed to the test because it's the one thing to read about it on paper and another to run your own head-to-head controlled test. So the question I actually wanted answered, how much faster is the dual really is it? And are the in-software print time estimates actually accurate? So I ran the same file on the dual that I have here and on the UV-DT fabric that I have in the other room. Same settings, flat versus textured, and I timed all 4 prints from start to finish. I started the clock the moment the print head made its first movement to start printing, taking out other variables like platen adjustment, print head cleaning, blah, blah, blah. So there have been other speed tests, certainly, and even prior to launch, I actually did a whole video on what xTool's documentation says about speed. Spoiler alert, they've been mainly pointing at 3D texture printing as the place where the dual's second print head, known as UV2, will save time with printing. So one quick thing before we start, because this always kind of trips people up. Print head 1, UV1, is the same on all 3 models of the Omni. The dual, the single UV, and the UV DT fabric all have that same print head configuration in print head 1. The dual adds the second UV print head with a different UV ink configuration. I've already tested those 2 dual heads against each other in a separate video. Printhead 2 is the faster of the 2, so that is what I am using for the comparison when comparing against the DT fabric, which, like the single model Omni, has that 1 UV printhead. All right, we are starting here in xTool Studio, and before we do, you'll see I have 2 tabs. They look very much the same. Oops. But they are set up connected to 2 different Omnis. So you can see this one up here, and it's always going to be labeled at the top, is the dual Omni. That's the one that has the 2 UV print heads. And then this second one I have is my DT fabric Omni. Okay, so that's the one that only has 1 UV print head. The other print head is dedicated to DTF DTG, which we are not going to be dealing with today. So I'm going to start over here, and what I'm going to do is bring in the same file for both of these. So let me just find my file. All right, so I'm just going to drag and drop. Whoa, very big. So I need to resize this, obviously. And what we're going to do is we are going to print this file 4 times. So we're going to print it flat on both the dual and the DT model of the Omni, and then we're going to print it with texture, and we're going to see what the time differences are. Now, I have, as I mentioned before, a separate video comparing the dual you print heads side to each other, basically. And so for this video, I am going to print with the one that optimizes speed. All right, so here we go. This is also the default. So again, we're on the dual Omni here. We've got 1 layer of white and 1 layer of color, and the white ink type is UV2. So if you're unfamiliar with what UV2 means on the dual, I will send you over to those other 2 videos that I get into that very, very deeply and explain all of that. Okay, so I'm going to copy this same design and I'm going to pull it into the work area that I have here. Literally the exact same size, exact same blank. This one, I just want you to see that we, again, flat, white, and color, 1 of each. We don't have any other options, right? Because there's only 1 UV print head, so we don't have that same option that we have here for which white ink type. Now, before we print these, I'm going to click process, and it's going to give us the estimated time of how long it's going to take. So this one is telling me that it's going to take 3 minutes and 16 seconds. Okay, so that's the dual. And then for the DT, it's telling me that it's going to take 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Now, I am going to tell you that I have found that the time estimates are not 100%. But what you can see is that 4 minutes and 12 seconds for the fabric model versus, what did we say? 3 minutes and 3:23. It's or 3:16. So it's almost a full minute difference for flat, okay? And again, the settings are the same. High, white, color, same size, same image. So let's go ahead and print those, and I will time them. First up, the DT model, which has the single UV print head. So this one is printing on that rectangular magnet that I showed you, and this one, remember, has only that one channel of UV white. So that's what is going on here. Now, a couple of things about timing videos, because it is very, very difficult to put print speed tests together, especially on something where there's so many variables. How many layers and how many are you doing varnish? Are you doing multiple layers of white? Which white channel are you using? In this case, there's no option. You're just using the UV white that's in the printhead one. But what I do is I start my timer exactly when the printhead begins to move. So that eliminates any, you know, varying variable where the platen itself has to move, or a printhead priming needs to happen, or anything like that. So I try to make it as uh, apples to apples as I can. So this one, what you're going to see is this is going to finish printing, and I am going to speed it up as soon as I stop talking, and I'll stop it and stop the stopwatch at the exact same time. You will see that the finished time is not exactly as the estimate was in the software, although it's pretty close. Then after this one's done, I will do a test print of the exact same file on the dual Omni. So that took just under 4 minutes for the magnet on the DT model. Okay, now we are moving over to the dual Omni. Now, a couple of things you're probably wondering, like, why are you using a different blank? So you have no idea how many times I've done little tests, and I have no more of those rectangular magnets. It's irrelevant really, because the file size is the exact same. It's the exact same file, and I actually put it in the exact same position as far as like the XY axis in xTool Studio, so that the printhead didn't have to travel any further, and there was no question about that. So disregard that, but also when you see this print at the end, it's going to be off centered of this magnet of this coaster, and that's why, because I put it in the same position as the rectangular ceramic magnet. Now, couple of things. This one's not going to take nearly as long. You might be surprised, as I was, at how fast this one actually prints and how much time is saved. Remember though, even though this is an apples to apples test, because the dual has two UV print heads, it takes advantage of the second print head when it's printing. And I have a whole separate video, as I mentioned, about how you can make the dual absolutely as fast as possible, how you can optimize the speed on that. And it has to do with that double cartridge for the rigid white in UV2. So I will link you over to that video if you're interested in the why behind it, and why the single UV and also the fabric UV will never be able to compete with the speed when you're using UV2 in the dual. That took 3 minutes and 1 second. So that is 24% faster. Another way to say it is that the DT fabric printer takes 30% longer than the dual when printing flat. Okay, so flat is done, and here's what I got. Same file, same settings, both machines timed start to finish as soon as the print head started moving. The dual, this one here, printed in 3 minutes and 1 second. The UVDT fabric took 3 minutes 58 seconds. That is also has the one UV print head, same exact as the Omni single version. So that's a 57-second difference on a print that's only about 3 minutes long. So that's the number that we really want to pay attention to, because on a short print like this, a minute is pretty significant chunk of time. And if you're running these in batch, let's say you're running 20 of these, that's 20 minutes that you're saving. Or let's say the item or the design that you have is much, much larger. That's going to, same thing, save you significant amount of time using dual with the UV2. Okay, so that's flat. Now let's see a speed test when we add texture. Are we going to see the same amount of difference? Obviously, the texture is going to take much more time, but is the amount of time that you're going to take on the dual that much greater than it is on the DT model, which again is equivalent to the single model UV printer? Omni. There's so many printers. I keep getting. I know what they all are, but trying to get it all out and say it all is just like sometimes comes out blah. So I apologize. Add that to the blooper reel. This one we're doing texture. So down here we have a couple of options. Again, we are on the dual Omni here, and for white we want to use rigid white. We are doing the exact 0.05. We have round at 0.08, rounded edge. So let's process this. And the estimated time is 14 minutes and 3 seconds. So let's see when it actually starts printing, how long it's going to take. And remember, as always, we are going to start the timer at the first left-right movement of the print head. Okay, so here we go with the dual. Now remember, it's going to put down layer over layer over layer of white. That's what builds up that 3D texture. I do apologize for how fast this is going, but there's no way that I want you guys sitting through this. It has been sped up about 20 times, but so has the clock. So you'll see that it lays down all of the white, and then along with the very last couple of passes is where the color comes down. So you're not using a bunch of color to build up the texture. All right, so let's see how close this is. I'm going to tell you that my phone is overwhelmed with all of these long videos, and it stopped temporarily, but the space here is filling the space that the clock stopped. So this is still accurate. Okay, so that took almost 14 minutes and 18 seconds for the dual to print that textured file. So I'm going to print the same exact file, same size, same settings, or as close to settings as we can, because we only have the one UV print head on the UV DT fabric Omni. Okay, so I didn't move the design. Obviously I have the same round coaster again. If we look at this, we've got 0.05, which I'll just switch that to 0.05. We've got round 0.08, and this, obviously there's no option for which white to use, okay, when you're using the dual. So you've only got, the only option is white and color, and there's no like additional white options. Okay, so we will click process on this one. This is telling us 15 minutes 56 seconds. So to be honest, not terribly longer, maybe a minute or so longer, the estimate wise, from the dual. So let's try that. All right, and here we go with that same textured print on the UV DT fabric model, which, as you know, has the single UV print head, which I can't say, I guess, with 100% certainty, but that's the same print head I believe that the single model has as well, because they all three models use that same print head one configuration. Okay, so let's see how long this one is. I do expect, obviously, it's going to take a bit longer, but it'll be interesting to see just how much longer. You did see the estimate. Let's see how close to the estimate it is. Okay, so that took about 16 minutes and 19 seconds, slightly longer than what the estimate was, but I'm totally fine with that margin of error. What I will say is that I was very surprised by the small difference with the texture prints, because I thought we would see a bigger difference, and I also thought this was the end of my video. Okay, so I thought I was done this video. And then I literally just went back into the software and I discovered something that may be the toggle of all toggles when it comes to speed and texture. And this may actually be where xTool is getting their claim that texture is where the speed is with Dual 2. So I'm going to show you in the software exactly what this is. Okay, so literally I was over here. This is how all of the settings were made. You'll remember that this is what we did when we used the dual. We had the rigid white. We had the thickness at 0.05. I'll just change it so you have it there. And then we had down here round edge with 0.008. Okay, so I actually went to, I don't know what I was doing, but what I did was I came up here and I see this thing here that says relief speed. And so I hovered over it and it says when enabled, it consumes both soft white and hard white simultaneously. So you'll remember that hard white and soft white are both in UV2, and hard white is also in UV1. Okay, so it consumes both hard and soft simultaneously to improve the printing speed of reliefs, textures, and plain buildups. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to run another test. So I'm going to add this test here now, and I'm going to see how that changes the speed. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to point out before I hit send on this, and that is that if you are up here and you're like, I don't see that option and I'm not selected, like, where did it go? Believe me, the reason I'm adding this little section in is because you are me. So that speed relief option is buried under user defined, which means if you have selected your material like you should, ceramic fridge magnet in this case, you are not going to have that option. So you have to go down here to user defined, and that is where you will see relief speed. So I think there are a couple of things in the software that could probably use a little bit of a UI fix, maybe to just make things a little bit more streamlined. But if you're looking for that, that's where it is. If you go up here and you do unknown material, crazy enough, it shows up because for some reason it's only under user defined and unknown is considered user defined. So if you were like, I have my material here and I can't figure out where this relief speed is, change from reference to user defined and then you'll see it there. Okay, so I will begin this process. All right, so already this is saying 9 minutes and 40 seconds. Let's see. Okay, so again, same exact file, same exact number of layers. The only thing I did was toggle on that relief speed option. And again, that is only available on the Dual Omni. So let's just see if this comes out in the 9-minute mark, then that will be what I think we will say a 6-minute difference over even the Dual itself, which I can't remember the exact number. I'll look back before I do the very end of this, but that will be a significant difference, and that is going to be the way that you want to print your relief, or I should say, if you that will be the way that you want to print your 3D texture when you are using the Dual, because that's going to be the absolute fastest. Now, this does not mean, and I can't stress this enough, this does not mean that you cannot do texture with the why can't I say that word? With the single Omni or the DT Fabric Edition. It just means that it won't print texture as fast. $9.32. So that's the same file on the Dual, which you'll remember ran at 14 minutes, 18 seconds previously. Both were using UV2. So the difference was turning on that one setting. Okay, so let me put all 5 of these print tests and times on the screen because I've been living with these numbers for literally days. I still can't keep them straight, and I'm going to tell you in a few minutes why they actually changed dramatically. So flat print on UV-DT fabric model ran at 357. The Dual was 301. That's a 55-second difference of about 23% time savings. So texture print, again, same file, same settings on both machines as far as texture, height, image size, all that. On the UV DT fabric model, it took 16 minutes and 19 seconds. On the Dual, without relief speed up, it took 14 minutes, 18 seconds. That's a 2-minute difference, or about a 12% time savings. So before we move on, that right there is the part that I honestly did not expect. That to me was a real surprise. Texture is where the second UV print head in the Dual gets the speed recognition. So I was really surprised that it didn't save that much time. Remember, it was 23% time savings on the flat and just 12 on the texture. Okay, so then I made that discovery, buried deep in the settings, and when I turned it on and ran the print again, the Dual Omni, it was 9 minutes and 32 seconds against the DT fabric, which has the single UV print head. That's a 6-minute and 46-second difference, or 42% time savings. So the biggest gap anywhere in this whole test, and I almost missed it, and you may have too, is buried in the settings, not where you would expect. So here's what I want you to take away from those 2 green check marks that I just had on the screen, because they're not saying the same thing. The one on the flat print test means the machine, or the Dual Omni Model 1. The Dual is faster on the flat, out of the box, nothing to turn on. The check mark on the bottom test print results means the setting one. So out of the box, the dual UV only beats the fabric by 12% on texture. But when you turn on relief speed up, it beats it by 42%. So that setting is off by default, and it's a dual only, texture only feature. The DT fabric and the single UV models cannot run it because it needs both whites in both UV print heads at the same time. Now let me tell you what this print speed test took, because it was not for prints. It took at least a dozen different runs. Partway through the testing the texture, I started to notice that the print estimates dropped significantly. What my previous texture test prints had shown, you'll see they had, like this one for example, was 28 minutes and 25 seconds. That's the actual print time, forget the estimate. Then suddenly it was dropping to as what we saw by minutes. And I'm not talking just like a few minutes, like it was now in the mid-teens, saving like literally 12 minutes. That's when I realized that at some point during the few days from when I started testing to then, I had a forced software update that included a firmware update to both Omnis. Now I can't tell you that the update is what changed the estimates and the print times, but that is the only thing that changed, so it's the only thing I can figure. It was so dramatic. I had to rerun all the tests again to make sure that I was giving you the most accurate information, because there's no way I'm going to sit here and hand you print speed tests from two different software versions, two different firmwares, and call it a speed test. So I threw them all out and I ran every print again. That also explains why I started on these rectangles and why I ended on these round coasters. So the version that I'm now using in xTool is 1.8.22. Okay, 1.8.22, that did include the firmware update. There's no way to force a firmware update, otherwise it has to be done through the software. So every number that you just saw came off that version, and I clocked it, as you saw. Not one of them is a software estimate, although the estimates were then much more close to what the actual print time was. So if you're running an older version that still runs the Omni, because there's at least one version ahead of this that still runs the Omni, that may be why your times aren't matching, and now you may know why, so go ahead and check to see if you have an update. Whew, that was a lot. And after all those tests and re-editing this video at least 5 times, that is a wrap. If you guys have questions, comments, please leave them in the comments below. As always, all the links are in the description below. As always, if you're looking for same-day personalized help, if you want US-based support, if you're looking for information on how to run xTool Studio, your Omni, your UV printer, that's a different brand, your laser cutting machine, print and cut machine, whatever it is that you see on my channel that you're looking for help, I offer all of that through Silhouette U. It includes videos that are not here on YouTube. It also includes all of those support options along with other benefits as well. So I will link to that in the description below. You can use the code YouTube to get 50% off when you join. All right, guys, see you soon.